Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today we're talking about the Justice League versus the Champions of Angor. And if you're unfamiliar with the Champions of Angor, I will tell you the origin of where they came from exactly as it was told to me. So the year was 1971 and a man named Mike Friedrich was writing the Justice League of America comic book at the time. And he was good friends with another man named Roy Thomas, who was writing the Avengers comics at the time. And back then, if you wanted to work for Marvel and DC, you had to live in New York City. And so, what that meant was because these two guys were friends, every day on their lunch hour, they would go out to eat together. And so one day they're sitting in a restaurant venting about their frustrations as comic book writers and how tired they were of doing what they've been doing, when one of them jokes that they should just have the Avengers fight the Justice League. That way, instead of the two men having to write two scripts that month, they could just pool their resources and write one script, and it would be half as much work. So, what began as a joke started to snowball, and they actually did that. And each man turned this script into his respective editor, and both Marvel and DC hated the idea and shot it down. So Roy Thomas took characters in the script like Wonder Woman and renamed her Power Princess. And he created analogs of the Justice League called the Squadron Supreme. Meanwhile, Mike Friedrich would take characters in his script, like the Scarlet Witch, and rename her Silver Sorceress. Quicksilver became Jack B. Quick, Wasp became Blue Jay, and Thor became Wanda Gina. And so the Champions of Angor were born. And Avengers number 85 and Justice League number 87 both hit newsstands in February of 71. And the way I heard it, it was even on the exact same day. In both Marvel and DC simultaneously heard that the other company had supposedly infringed on their intellectual property, and both were getting ready to sue the other company when they found out that they themselves had done the exact same thing. So, as such, there were no lawsuits, but supposedly Roy Thomas and Mike Friedrich were both chewed out for this stunt they'd pulled. But it paved the way for actual crossovers later in the decade, like the famous Superman Spider Man crossover of 1977. And crossovers like that one heavily inspired our role playing game. So I wanted to give a shout out to Roy Thomas and Mike Friedrich. If not for this one conversation they had at the lunch table half a decade before I was even born, I don't think this role playing campaign would even exist. And that means all the people I've met over the years because of that, all the friends I've made, wouldn't have happened. So my life would actually be very, very different without these comics. So before I get into the actual game session itself, friendly reminder, please hit that like button. Check to see if you're still subscribed because YouTube loves to unsubscribe you without telling you. Ring the bell for notifications and leave us a comment. It helps us out with the YouTube algorithm, and we love hearing from you guys. We have a truly great community here, and it's all thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. So with all that said, let's dive into the actual adventure. The prologue to this one takes place in 1971 when archaeologists unearth a solar-powered robot in Peru. The sun's rays get it up and going again, and it goes on a rampage. The Justice League shows up to stop it, and the robot fires energy blasts that knocks out the entire league. Then it continues on its rampage. After a while, the Leaguers wake up, and the Green Lantern puts a bubble around himself and the others, and they follow the signal the robot is receiving into the far reaches of space to try to find out who is controlling the robot remotely. which brings us to the main plot, which takes place on the alien world of Cam Nam Lao, the planet that has experienced its own version of World War III. Here, a city that sort of resembles New York has been bombed out and completely destroyed. As the Justice League has a look around, they are surprise attacked by the champions of Angor. American Crusader is the knockoff of Captain America. He attacks Batman. He needs an 11 or better to hit Batman, and he rolls a 7 and a 5, which does 1 point of damage. Batman then subs his martial arts for how hard he can hit. He rolls a 4 and a 9 and does 6 points of damage, knocking out American Crusader. Behemoth is the knockoff of the Incredible Hulk. He attacks Aquaman, but only rolls a 1 and a 3, which is a miss. Aquaman hits back, rolling a 10 and a 4, which is enough to knock out Behemoth. Blue Jay is the knockoff of Wasp. He attacks the Atom, rolling a 4 and a 1, which is a miss. Atom hits back, rolling double 7s, then a 5 and a 4. So Blue Jay is knocked out. Bowman is the knockoff of Hawkeye. He attacks Red Arrow, the former sidekick of Green Arrow, who recently gave his life defending Earth from the forces of Darkseid. Bowman rolls a 14, which hits Red Arrow, doing 4 points of damage. Then Bowman shoots again, hitting and knocking out Red Arrow. The Bug, aka Louse Man, is the knockoff of Spider-Man. He attacks Captain Marvel, aka Bill Batson, rolling a 4 and a 6, doing utterly no damage whatsoever. Captain Marvel hits back, doing 27 points of damage, and the Bug is knocked out. Dreamslayer is sort of like a knockoff between Doctor Strange and Dormammu. He attacks Dr. Fate, rolling double 3s, then a 9 and a 7 for a total of 22, which is 4 column shifts. And since Dr. Fate doesn't have any skin armor or anything like that, that means Dr. Fate is knocked out. Fireball is the knockoff of the Human Torch. He attacks Jade, rolling a 10 and a 3, earning 1 column shift and doing 6 points of damage. Jade returns fire, no pun intended, rolling double 7s, then a 3 and a 2 for a total of 19, which is 3 column shifts. Fireball takes 22 points of damage and is knocked out. Frank Future is the knockoff of Reed Richards. He attacks Elongated Man, rolling a 6 and a 10, doing 7 points of damage. Elongated Man attacks back, rolling a 10 and a 7, and he also does 7 points of damage. But Frank Future spent an automatic action moving to where Elongated Man is, whereas Elongated Man can trade his other 2 automatic actions for another dice action, which he uses to hit again, and he rolls double 10s, then a 5 and an 8 for a total of 33, which means Frank Future is knocked out. Ghost Girl is the knockoff of Sue Richards. She attacks Obsidian, rolling a 3 and a 1, missing him. He attacks her, rolling a 7 and a 10, doing 22 points of damage. She is knocked out. Golem is the knockoff of Ben Grimm. He attacks Element Girl, aka Urania Blackwell, the female version of Metamorpho. He attacks her, rolling double 8s, then a 9 and a 4 for a total of 29, which is 6 column shifts. She takes 11 points of damage, and she is knocked out. Hyperius is a knockoff of Superman, weirdly enough, and not based on a Marvel character at all. He attacks Superman, rolling a 7 and a 2, which is a miss. He needed an 11 or better to hit. Superman hits back, rolling a 7 and an 8, earning 2 column shifts. So the body of Hyperius drops from 40 to 18. Superman hits again, rolling a 5 and a 10, earning 2 more column shifts. So Hyperius is knocked out. Jack Be Quick is the knockoff of Quicksilver. He attacks the Flash, rolling a 3 and a 6, which is a miss. Flash subs super speed for strength, hits back, rolls a 7 and a 5, and Jack is knocked out. Kite is a female knockoff of Falcon, and she attacks Hawkgirl. She rolls a 9 and a 2, which is exactly what she needed to hit. Hawk Girl takes 3 points of damage. Hawk Girl hits back, rolling a 4 and a 1, which is a miss. Then she hits back again, rolling a 6 and a 3, which is also a miss. Kite returns fire, rolling a 9 and a 7, earning 2 column shifts, which does 6 points of damage, which knocks out Hawk Girl. Ladybug is the knockoff of Spider Woman. She attacks Mary Marvel, rolling a 4 and a 5, doing no damage. Mary hits back, rolling a 9 and a 4, so Ladybug takes 29 points of damage, and the Ladybug is knocked out. Machine Head is one of 2 knockoffs of Iron Man. He attacks Martian Manhunter, rolls a 10 and a 7, doing no damage. Martian Manhunter then pulls him out of his power armor using the phasing ability, and then uses telepathy, rolling a 6 and an 8, knocking him out. Major Max is the knockoff of Carol Danvers. She attacks Wonder Woman, rolling double 1s, which is a critical failure. Wonder Woman, in turn, hits Max, rolling double 9s, then double 7s, then a 6 and a 1. So Major Max is majorly knocked out. One Eye is the knockoff of Cyclops, and his team, the Zen Men, are knockoffs of the X-Men. One Eye attacks Guy Gardner, the backup Green Lantern of Sector 2814, rolling a 10 and a 7, but even that doesn't get through Gardner's force field. Guy then hits back, rolling a 6 and a 7, which does 13 points of damage, and One Eye is knocked out. Red Dragon is the knockoff of Black Widow. She attacks Big Barda, subbing martial arts for strength, and rolling a 7 and a 10, doing 6 points of damage, which honestly is pretty impressive. Then Barda hits back, rolling double 1s, which is critical failure. So Barda loses her turn. Red Dragon gets to go again. She rolls 7 and a 10 again, doing another 6 points of damage, and Barda is actually knocked out, which I was shocked by. Silver Eagle is the knockoff of Falcon. He attacks Mr. Miracle, rolling a 4 and a 1, which is a miss. Mr. Miracle hits back with his Mother Box's 11 APs of Omni Power, subbed for an Energy Blast. He rolls a 5 and a 10, which hits for 10 damage, and Silver Eagle is knocked out. Then Mr. Miracle rushes over to the side of Big Barda to check on her. Silver Sorceress is the knockoff of Scarlet Witch. She attacks Zatanna, rolling a 5 and a 3, so she fails to hurt Zatanna. Then on her opponent's turn, Zatanna rolls double 10s, then a 2 and a 3. So Silver Sorceress is knocked out. Stunt Master is the knockoff of Daredevil. He attacks Blue Beetle, rolling a 9 and a 6, which hits for 8 damage, so Blue Beetle is knocked out. Tin Man is the other of those 2 knockoffs of Iron Man that I mentioned. He attacks the Phantom Stranger, rolling a 6 and a 4, which is a miss. The Phantom Stranger then uses 40 APs of sorcery to teleport him out of his power armor. Then another 40 APs of sorcery to knock him out. Tracer is a knockoff of Wolverine / Sabretooth. He attacks Orion, rolling a 2 and a 9, which is a miss. Orion hits back, rolling a 7 and a 4, which hits, doing 19 points of damage, which knocks out Tracer. But Tracer has a healing factor, so he starts to get hit points back. So Orion hits him more, and Tracer heals more, and Orion hits him more. On Orion's end, this is actually very therapeutic. Wand Gina is the knockoff of Thor. He attacks Hal Jordan, rolling a 3 and a 4, which is a miss. Hal subs his 12 APs of Omni Power for sleep, and it works. Wand Gina passes out. Bowman, Dreamslayer, Golem, Kite, Red Dragon, and Stuntmaster are not knocked out yet. So we roll initiative again for the next phase of combat, and Superman is the fastest. So he declares that he just wants to multi-attack all of them using his heat vision. He rolls a 10 and an 8, So it's his 30 APs of heat vision, which is nuclear level damage, by the way, versus their respective bodies. Obviously, he doesn't enter killing combat. He declares knockout damage only, so they're all knocked out. Mr. Miracle revives Barda using his mother box. Then he goes around playing medic to all the other fallen members of the Justice League. Wonder Woman asks Orion if he really has to keep punching Tracer, and Orion flatly says yes. Which brings us to the epilogue. The Justice League takes the seemingly evil twins of the Marvel characters to the science cells on Oa, where they are imprisoned. While they are there, just like in the comics, their homeworld of Angor is destroyed by a nuclear holocaust caused by a group of supervillains called the Extremists. A few characters escape from Angor and begin to search the stars for their missing comrades. And while they do eventually figure out where they're at, that's a story for another day. So we enjoyed playing this one. In fact, we liked the Champions of Angor more than their more famous counterparts, the Squadron Supreme. Partially because I noticed that when DC made the Champions of Angor, I actually think there was more respect coming from DC's end. When Marvel made the Squadron Supreme, I think it was more mean-spirited on Marvel's end. And as such, the stats of the Squadron Supreme come off as being way too low to actually represent the character that they're standing in for. For instance, in 1971, DC was still making pre-crisis Superman stories. But when we see Marvel's knockoff of Superman, all he can do is lift 100 tons, which is a far cry from the abilities of his DC counterpart at that time. Conversely, the Champions of Angor seem to genuinely have the exact same power levels as those they were meant to represent, which in game terms you could think of as a higher challenge rating, which in this case led to a better game experience. At least I thought it was a good game experience. Hopefully you liked it too. If so, as always, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, and leave a comment. From all of us here at the longest running superhero RPG on Earth, we hope you guys have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure.